Soviet successful radar. It was installed on the MiG air defense interceptors. It was capable of locating bombers at a range of 11 kilometers. Subsequently, the modernized Izumrud was installed on a supersonic MiG-19P. In the beginning of the 50s, the Yakovlev Design Bureau came up with the initiative of making a barrage interceptor capable of performing long-term patrolling at a long distance from the airdrome. The Mikulin's AM-5 small-size engines with good thrust were best for such an interceptor. To extend the flight range, they were installed under the wing, which enabled to locate more fuel in the fuselage. A bicycle landing gear became a characteristic feature of this aircraft, allowing to reduce its dimensions and save on the construction weight. This interceptor could stay over 3 hours in the air, while the new Sokol radar was detecting targets at a distance of up to 30 kilometers. It was an excellent result for that time. The serial version was indicated as Yak-25. The same identification had the Yakovlev's prototype straight-wing fighter. Now it had an interceptor namesake, another Yak-25. In 1955, interceptors started to join the army. Pilots liked the aircraft a lot. It was pleasant to fly and had excellent takeoff and landing characteristics. As the pilots joked, the self-drive and self-land. In the first half of the 50s, progress of the Soviet scientists and designers in the field of aerodynamics and engine construction allowed to approach a double speed of sound. Such flight conditions dictated new aircraft layout. The most perspective was the delta wing. As compared to the swept wing, it had a more rigid construction, which is no less important at high speed. Besides, such wing could carry more fuel. In 1953, the Mikoyan Design Bureau started production of the light frontline fighter. Having no experience of the delta wing utilization, the Mikoyan Design Bureau decided to use the well-proven chess combination E2-E4. E2 was the index of the swept wing fighter, while E4 was the index of the delta wing fighter. The comparative tests showed advantages of E4. It was clear that the new fighter will have a delta wing. Aircraft systems and construction updates started. The air intake lip became sharper and the cone inside of it became extensible. Specifically for the Mikoyan aircraft, a new ejection system was tested. It had a unique design. During ejection, the canopy and the seat served as a kind of a capsule covering the pilot from the ram air, and then it automatically separated from the seat. In 1957, the aircraft was issued in a limited edition of 10 pieces under the name of MiG-21. Very soon, different modifications of this fighter became familiar to the whole world. The potential of this aircraft enabled it to stay in service in many countries until the 21st century. However, the path of this outstanding aircraft could have terminated at the very beginning. Su-7, a swept-wing fighter built by the Sukhoi Design Bureau, became the MiG-21 competitor. In 1956, for the first time in the Soviet Union, this aircraft exceeded the speed of sound twofold. The Sukhoi fighter was also superior in altitude. The future of the Mikoyan aircraft became doubtful. The aircraft's future was saved by the new two-shaft engine designed by Tumansky. Thanks to it, the MiG-21 flight characteristics became much better. Armament was added. Pylons for bombs or blocks of aircraft rockets were put under the wings. With the above-mentioned changes, the aircraft was put on service as MiG-21F. Quick progress in the jet era could not but touch upon the fighter's armament. By mid-50s, the air-to-air missiles appeared in the arsenal of American aircraft, which significantly increased their combat efficiency. RS-1U became the first such rocket in the USSR. Its identification can be translated as First Guided Rocket. It was targeted upon a radio beam from the fighter's onboard radar and had a range of 3 kilometers. In 1956, MiG-17 interceptors were armed with a new armament. Next modification of this missile had twice longer range, and they were put on supersonic MiG-19PM. Of course, the first missiles were far from perfect. Their application was like shooting in a rifle range. Missile could hit only non-maneuvering air targets. An unbelievable event gave an impact to the development of the rocket armament of the Soviet fighters. In autumn of 1958, in the course of combat activities between aviations of China and Taiwan, an American Sidewinder missile fired from a Taiwanese Sabre was stuck in the Chinese MiG-17 and did not explode. MiG-17 managed to land with such an American splinter. Soviet experts hurried to friendly China. Research showed that the Americans managed to create a lightweight, compact, and easy-to-operate air-to-air missile. The infrared homing head could easily hook up to the tail of the aircraft under attack, and the missile would catch up with it despite the pilot's maneuvering. The USSR decided to copy this Sidewinder. The homing head was copied as is, while the payload was decided to be made more powerful. The Soviet version of the missile was called K-13, and it became part of the new MiG-21 modification armament. The fighter was identified as MiG-21F-13. MiG-21PF became the next large series modification. Its main peculiarity was that the new radar enabling it to perform under heavy meteorological conditions and at night. Soon the MiG-21PF-M was put into production. For the improvement of its takeoff and landing characteristics, such aerodynamic novelty as the flaps boundary layer blowing was applied. The MiG-PF and PF-M modifications concept of those years did not include guns. The close air combat at high speed was thought to be practically impossible, and the flights were assumed to be conducted only with the use of guided missiles. The war in Vietnam, which started in 1965, allowed to test the aircraft in real combat conditions. The main MiG's competitor was the American F-4 Phantom. Possessing more powerful missile armament and a more enhanced onboard radar, it was significantly inferior to MiG in maneuverability. However, a good overview from the cabin and the second crew member capable of controlling the situation made Phantom an adequate enemy. Vietnam proved the necessity of cannons. Close maneuverable fights took place rather often. Since neither MiGs nor Phantoms had any built-in guns during the Vietnam War, they started to use gun pods. However, the most efficient conduct of the air combat was considered to be the simultaneous use of two types of aircraft. Thus, MiG-17s were blocking the entire altitude range up to 2,000 meters, having higher pre-sonic maneuverability